All right, it is the last night of Unpacking R. Kelly. I'm Alex Haynes.
And I'm Tiff Lanelle.
Hello, Tiff. How are you?
I'm great, Alex. The Haynes, how are you?
I'm great. It's
Fantastic.
great. It's been wonderful to sit and talk about this for 3 days. And actually, I think that I'm sick of talking about R. Kelly. Honestly, I think that I'm not gonna get enough of talking about how we address um, certain things in our community, and we don't talk about it enough. And so tonight, we're going to talk about some things that are uncomfortable. We're going to talk about some solutions. If you've missed any part of the session, you can go to bossfm.com/ unpacking R. Kelly and watch session one and session two. It's available in video and audio format. And we'll be providing this one as well, tonight's episode. But I want you to have these discussions in uncomfortable places. Don't get yourself fired or anything, or maybe get fired.
Nope. Nope.
But have these conversations at the brunch table. Interrupt the pastor if he's talking about some BS and be like, "You talk about this. Let's talk about this." Um, we have to have these conversations. It's that important, and I think that I can't speak for you, Tiff, but definitely I think that people that watch the documentary and people that haven't watched the documentary, people that could only stomach portions of the documentary have kind of joined our conversation, and the feedback. I don't really care about the feedback because I feel like people can talk to me about it all day, and I'm gonna push you back. I'm push on you to talk to your family and to your community and to your circle and to your tribe, because if we're not having these conversations with each other, we're going to be in the same place in 10 years, and there's going to be another predator that we're trying to take down, and that we're frustrated with, and we want justice because he's gone or she's gone rampant in these communities. So with that said, we have some panelists back tonight. We're definitely going to talk about, we're going to really continue to unpack this, but again, we're going to come with some solutions. Um, and Tiff, I guess we could just start off with the first um, question, and I think it's fine for us to jump in. And again, if you're tuning in and you've missed other portions, there's certain points that we've probably already hit. So if you're watching and you get frustrated, go back and watch, and it's all good. Um, I want to talk about cancel culture, and you and I talked about this a little bit today. Actually, we talked about this pretty much off and on all day. But
Hmm.
when we talk about cancel culture and how it's been decades of information that we've had on R. Kelly and his behavior. And it's just now that people are, once again, I mean, it's happened before. Over the summer, there was Mute R. Kelly at Boss FM. We joined Time's Up and we muted R. Kelly and we don't play R. Kelly's music. And then it went away. And then it came back because now we've had this docu reality series.
Okay.
And people are like, okay, I'm done with him. I'm canceling his music. I'm erasing his music. And in some ways, I get it. I understand you can't listen to it. You're not going to be able to stomach it. And, you think about some of these songs that he's written. You can't help but think about, who he was writing these songs about.
Right.
Uh, but like I said yesterday, I'm somewhat of a skeptic. Like, I don't think that because it's popular right now. Of course, people are doing it, but I don't think there's longevity in it. I think similar to the way that it's been done and kind of swept under the rug, people are easily going to forget. And those that don't forget, they're just going to return to it because it's comfortable, or they don't know. And while I think it's easy to cancel people or things or situations, Papa John, you brought Papa John's up earlier.
Right.
I think it was very easy. I mean, I don't really know anybody that still eats Papa John's. And I think it was kind of easy for us to do that because it's like you can get pizza anywhere. With R.
Right.
Kelly, and it could be just me working in this industry for a while and understanding how much he's touched and how much he's influenced, and all the things and places that he's connected to. I don't think it's that easy, but you kind of had a different perspective because I think you were like, no, he's done. I'm done.
Yeah, I can't bring myself to listen to Age Ain't Nothing But a Number. And I know that's a Leah song, but Step in the Name of Love, You Saved Me, Trapped in the Closet. Like, there are certain songs. First of all, anytime I hear his music, I'm going to automatically go back to this whole situation. I'm going to get disgusted all over again. And then I have to turn it off.
Do you think that's long lasting for you? Do you think that's going to constantly be the case? Because I think even with the titles you named, I hear Step in the Name of Love, and it's just like I definitely heard the beat drop, and all I see in my head is aunties and uncles.
But for me, music emotes feelings and memories and sentiments and all of that. And if all I keep thinking of is Surviving R. Kelly when I hear your music, I'm done. I can't. Now, I will say that it may not be long lasting for me for all the songs that he wrote. Like I mentioned earlier, I love Michael Jackson's You Are Not Alone. I like Whitney Houston's I Look to You.
I told you earlier, I love Maxwell's Fortunate.
And I like Maxwell's Fortunate.
I'm going to keep on loving Maxwell's Fortunate. And that's my honesty right there. That's just it is. I just am.
Yeah, I can't. I don't know that it'll be as long lasting for me for the music that he wrote or had a hand in creating or collaborating with. But his music, absolutely, I'm done.
So to that point, are you actually canceling him? Like, how effective is this? Is this just a buzzword that we have right now? Because if so, like, I'm really not into just jumping into cliches because it's what society is doing right now.
Right. I think that cancel is a buzzword. However, I will say that I'm not sure that trying to cancel R. Kelly will be as, not in the traditional sense, not in the sense that we've done it. I don't think it'll be as impactful to him as us canceling Papa John's or canceling Chrisette Michele or canceling Tina Campbell. I think for those artists and those companies, I think for those artists and companies, it's a bit easier because, like you said, Papa John's, we can get pizza anywhere. Tina Campbell, nobody really liked her in the first place.
Who?
Chrisette Michele,
cassette tape.
Yeah. Whatever.
Tape. It was kind of easy for cassette tape because I was like, I don't have a cassette tape player, so it's good.
You know what? I'm not doing this.
I think when the artist and the companies aren't so intertwined, I think it's a little bit easier to cancel them, so to speak. But for R. Kelly, he's literally had a hand in many folks' careers over the last few decades by writing and everything else that he's done. So I think it'll be a bit harder and maybe not as impactful and long lasting, unfortunately.
I actually agree with you. Kia, your thoughts?
My breakup with R. Kelly happened over time. Like after the tape came out, Chocolate Factory dropped after that. I love the Chocolate Factory album, but I bought it on bootleg. So this was kind of my process of letting R. Kelly go. And the last song that I let go of was the remix to Ignition, because still to this day, if I hear that beat drop, it hits me. So it took a while, and that was probably like 2013 when I was like, you know what, you're gonna let this one go too. So it takes time because we are connected to his music. What clicked for me the other day was like, he's been financing his sexual exploits with the money that people are getting or giving him by listening to his music, going to his shows. So, and the fact that he still has these girls in his custody makes me even more aware of that now. Like when you give R. Kelly money, you are supporting his sexual exploits. And I think people have to wrestle with that and how that works for their conscience. And I also think it would be different if he had been prosecuted, or honestly, if he was dead, because we listen to abusers all the time with our music.
We do, and we're going to talk about that. I think that, and I get what you're saying. You listen to it, you stream it, you stream it, you're buying it. I haven't bought an R. Kelly album. Granted, a lot of albums I didn't buy because I just worked at radio stations, so I didn't. There was just no need there. And even the music that I have now, like I have an extensive library, like hundreds of thousands of songs. Me listening to an R. Kelly song or something that he wrote, it's not me giving him any money, and I'm not willingly listening to R. Kelly. It's interesting. I went to lunch today with a friend. I won't put him out there because y'all will blast him out and go find him and slam him and all of a sudden he just busts out in the middle. Like we literally left lunch. I don't know if it just popped into his head. Maybe he was thinking about, his night and he was just like, my mind's telling me no. And I was like, and I just jumped right in. And I was like, it was so quick that I did not even realize. And I was like, I literally stopped myself. And I was like, I can't agree with this. I can't it really, but it was such a natural response for me to just sing it back because it's just there. And so I kind of wrestle with that cancel thing. But I definitely get what you're saying. Gerald, what about you?
I am sort of with you because I don't really I've never streamed his music. I own a lot of the stuff. Like if it's from the 90s to right before the digital age became big up until today, like I just told you on another cast that I still buy albums. So if I'm usually paying someone's music, that means that I own it. So with him, if we're going to do cancel culture correctly, it means to stop somebody in a way that everything's done. And I'm not willing to stop listening to I Don't Want To by Toni Braxton, just like you said, Fortunate or anything that has made me feel good over time. Because just like Tiffany said, songs connect emotions to me. And for me, they personally don't connect to R. Kelly. He just happens to be the person who sang those songs.
So you feel different. Well, so I gotta go because we got a lot to cover. Are you canceling him? Are you canceling does cancel to you? I mean, you may not be buying his music or supporting his music, and maybe that's not what cancel means to you. Are you still going to listen to his music?
I don't feature the man. I'll still listen to his music. Got
you. Vonneta, thanks for joining us. What about you?
Am I going to listen to R. Kelly?
Yeah.
No. Well, I will say this. What you said is true. When an R. Kelly song comes on, because it's so much a part of my life. I mean, I'm older than you all. So, these songs came out when I was in high school.
Now, Velvet, don't age yourself. Don't do that.
It's okay. It's okay. So for me, I'm talking about songs that I listen to every day growing up. So now I've been listening to them for 20 years. It's different. So when I hear it, you do bob your head and then you realize, okay, wait a minute. But that's with other artists that I would like to not listen to anymore. Who Am I by Snoop came on the radio the other day and I knew all the words and I did all the parts and I said, this ain't right. But that's how it is. I'm not counseling him though. I try not to counsel human beings. I do think counseling distracts us from the work of changing systems and bringing justice because it focuses on a person instead of the root issues. I think he needs to go to jail. I believe that. And I believe that other people who molest and rape children need to be prosecuted and we need to treat our girls with more dignity.
Now that's real. I appreciate that. We're going to come back to you. Josh, what do you think? Are you canceling R. Kelly?
I'm from Chicago. It's a little hard for me.
Do you feel like if you did so, you'd be abandoning him?
There you go.
It's not abandoning. It's not abandoning. I don't have any particular connections to R. Kelly that are deep in that way. But it's more like it's just a memory attached to "Step in the Name of Love." We step in Chicago. It's the family reunion song and stuff like that. And it's not one of quote unquote those songs. I think it's a little easier for me. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think same thing what Vonneta said about the cancel culture. It's also like let's not get ahead of ourselves, because if we being honest, how many songs out there of artists who have long since been a part of this misogyny in their music and their lyrics and whatnot that
I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. We're gonna go through a list of people that I had no knowledge of some of these people, and it was eye opening for me. Mrs. Tidwell.
Yes, sir.
I can't do this. Are you canceling R. Kelly? Do you listen to R. Kelly's music?
Yes, I do.
Did you, and you watch the documentary? Do you feel like you should stop listening because of what you saw?
No, I don't.
Interesting. So you're going to still listen to R. Kelly music?
Yes. I sang I Wish earlier and was jamming. No,
and you know what? If I'm being honest and transparent, and thank you for your comment, because I think that is it. I wanted real answers, because some of this is really funny. Some of it is just honesty, and I think at the core of it, I think the point that I was trying to get to is that once it's out of the news, and if these DAs that have started to take action, if they don't do anything at all, and something else happens, or Donald Trump declares a state of emergency, and then all of these, I mean, there's so many things that happen in our society in the middle of the day that distract us, and all of a sudden you just turn it back on. So I think in canceling him, I think we need to be talking about how we put him behind bars and we remove him, and supporting him and enabling him. I definitely stand with that, Kia, and I understand that purchasing his music funds his sexual escapades and his sexual promiscuity. And honestly, I don't have any issues with his promiscuity if it doesn't involve underage women, but it does, and it has for so long. It's because what he does, like if R. Kelly was running a sex dungeon of grown ass women, like we talked about, women that 35 years old and consensual, there are people that would be outraged, and he's holding women hostage and all of that. But if it's consensual and he's running it and that's what he's into, that's really not my business, and I wouldn't cancel him then or stop listening to his music. But I do get the personal convictions of people that are like, oh, well, I just can't with that music, and I don't want to ingest, or, you know, I do get that as well. Josh?
I got a question, and I think to go back to about cancel culture, why does I don't know, Twitter culture, Facebook, whatever, so why does Black social media get to deem how we enter that space? That if somebody chooses to still listen to this music, why does that now mean that they co-sign? Like, how does that become a correlation between you agree or dis? You know what I'm saying? Can we not operate in the gray space? Are people not allowed to kind of have a little bit of their own individuality in this? Don't get me wrong. I say that might not be for me, but
no, I get you. So you're saying why does Black popular? Do you think that this cancellation of him and the crucifixion of people that listen to his music came from Black Twitter?
I don't know. I mean, that's part of the cancel culture. I mean, that's bigger than R. Kelly. But to keep it here in R. Kelly, I mean, that's what we do now. We dox people on, so we get people fired. Like when String Bean Sally or Barbecue Sally, whatever these names are, I forgot. It's a little late. But
no, you're right.
But we find these people. We actually get people fired.
That's literally, it's like in the fabric.
Yeah,
right. It's within our fabric. Somebody does one thing that's outrageous to us, and that's it. We're done with them. We're canceling them.
Fired.
We get them fired. I mean, listen, and in some instances, there was a racist in New York that went off on the worker in the salad shop, and New York literally canceled him. Like, his landlord canceled his lease,
right?
Where and then they threw a fiesta outside of his apartment building, and they brought a mariachi band and taco trucks. Like, they had taco food trucks, and I went by there and got me a taco because it was like, wow, man, like, they are really canceling this man, because I mean,
you're petty.
I like tacos,
right.
So I definitely went. But that's part of the fabric. But who's thought about that man since like after the fiesta was over and the taco truck pulled out
He was
and he lost
canceled.
his,
We didn't think about him.
exactly, nobody's thinking about him. And I just don't think that thing is even possible with R. Kelly, just because he's so embedded into the fabric. Kia, I mean, you and actually the panel that's up here right now, we're all very immersed in Black Twitter. Do you think that Black Twitter is to blame for the cancel culture stigma that lands on people?
I think we have to remember that Black Twitter is a bubble. Like, and it's really us talking to ourselves, and a lot of like-minded people, not all, but we talk to each other in a bubble. And once you walk outside of that bubble, you realize that Black people think very differently. So I'm not sure if cancel culture carries over into the real world, or if it's us yelling that at each other, to be absolutely honest.
No, it's really interesting that you say that. I'm not sure if it carries over into the real world, because there's a lot of things that, and I even tell people, there's like culture is really interesting right now, even when it comes to social media and the conversations that we're having, because there's a collective conversation about R. Kelly going on right now. And faux journalists are writing their think pieces on Facebook with misspelled words. And then you have people that are writing Twitter threads that are like unpackaging everything that's going down. And then, Instagram is full of memes. But there's some of us that are like, we're a part of them all, but we're focused on one. I mean, Twitter is where I feel like I interact with thinkers and people with like solid brains, and not just people that are in love with pretty pictures all day long on Twitter. And that's one thing that I like about it. But you see a lot of the conversations that we're having, they hit Instagram like about 14 hours later. They hit Facebook like the next day. And so it's like everybody starts to catch up. We've moved on. We're having a different conversation. And I think because of that, so many of the things that we rally with our conversations that start there, we know those of us that are on Twitter, we know where the conversation begins. We know how it began. We know how it started. We know like what sparked it. And then we know the people that are going to take action for the week. So after the week is done, and I think this is where we come back to talking about doing the work. How do we is it? I think cancel culture, and this is just my thought, and then we can move off of this. I don't think we're effective when we're policing people within this cancel culture narrative. I don't think that we're getting the job done or accomplishing anything when we're like, oh, you listening to R. Kelly, oh, you out. I get it. You felt triggered and you wanted to unfriend a couple people. They said some things that were extremely small-minded or, in support of a predator. And you were like, I don't want to follow you. I don't want to, and you blocked them and you removed them. That's fine. I get that. But I think that the people that you're in relationship with, I think having valuable conversations with them instead of just canceling them because they didn't let the music go is something that because they still need to have conversations with their brothers and their uncles and their dads. And while we can cancel them, I think we're missing opportunities there. And that's just how I feel about it. Kristin, your thoughts there?
Hey. I'm not actually super big on cancel culture anyway. Or like where people talk about people are trash. I typically don't think people should be thrown away. And so I don't like the mob mentality at all, because people are extreme simply because these are people they don't have to interact with in real life. Right? So when people tell people go kill yourself, are you kidding me? You don't know what that person is dealing with. When people put out people's real addresses, like the other gentleman mentioned Barbecue Becky, and how people got her fired, and they put this woman's real life address out there on the internet for people to follow her home. That's unconscionable. That's a human being.
I'm dealing with myself now, because I feel like in that instance, I think that bigots and racist people should know that's who you are, and the people that you interact with. I get that. And I think that
I get that people should know who you are.
Because I don't think that I don't want to conflate these issues because we know R. Kelly is a predator. Like, we know that. And canceling him and like there's nothing, we can't really blast it out. He's denying it, but we're putting all that out there. But when it comes to, it's not that it's not my goal, or I'm not the one that's running to, expose racists and bigots. But you're right. I'm like I said, you said that I'm dealing with myself on that because I'm wondering, while it is, as Black people, we have a coping mechanism, and that's really to make fun of things that are either ridiculous, or when people try to, especially our generation, in the face of oppression, in the face of pressure, and in the face of resistance and racism, we make a joke out of it because it's partially a coping mechanism, and it's also like, I can't believe this is still going on.
Right. No. So I believe people should be exposed. Like, I'm actually okay with people losing their jobs. I'm not okay with people's safety being put in jeopardy. Like, at no point should you think it's okay to put a woman's address out there on the internet for people to go to her home. Right. As a woman, that's just not okay. So I think we take things too far. Should there be consequences? Absolutely. R. Kelly should be arrested, right? R. Kelly should be under the jail. We should have stronger sense of community. We should be having these conversations to deal with the R. Kellys in our families and in our churches and in our communities, right? R. Kelly should set a precedent for how we deal with it, right? And the same with all these other things, like dealing with Barbecue Becky should set a precedent for how we deal with it. Out of all the things that came out of that instance, the coolest thing was you had all these Black people get together and throw this huge block party in the park, right? You got community from her foolishness. That's how you respond to these things. And then they got the little law changed or whatever. Like, that's what you do, like things that are beneficial. It's not beneficial to anyone to put someone's personal address on the internet. That doesn't help anybody, and it puts somebody in danger. Like, put that same kind of energy into doing something that's beneficial to the community, not just something to harm someone because they did something you didn't like.
Tiff, what do you think that beneficial thing is? And I think as we bring it back to canceling culture, what's beneficial to help us continue to have the conversation, and not just focus on canceling him, but canceling the predatory behaviors that are in our communities?
Well, West made a comment, written comment that I'm reading. Cancellation does not equal justice. And I have to repeat that because I do think that while the cancel culture is popular, it's the thing to do. It's something that rolls off the tongue whenever somebody does something that's offensive to the majority or even to the strong few, then that's what we do. But I don't think that it's beneficial in the matter of actually doing something to continue the conversation or stop the predatory behavior. I think that it's just a way for us to feel better about, well, this is something that I can do to show that I am opposing this person's actions. It doesn't necessarily do anything other than that. I don't think it's beneficial in actually fighting the good fight or seeking justice for the victims of the predator or anything else other than, as Kia mentioned, not financially paying the predator or whatnot. And Miss Stacey, my mom, so that I don't get in trouble, made a good point. She was doing a written comment as well and said, if you own it, if you own the music and you have it on CD, whatever, that is a little bit different than us having to stream it. His stream numbers went up when this docuseries came out. Some people say it was because they were researching the lyrics. Some people were probably just listening to it because they just wanted to, and just didn't want to admit it. But I'm not sure that, to answer your question, I'm not sure that it is beneficial in any way. It's definitely not justice. It definitely doesn't do anything except make some people feel better. Oh, I canceled him too. I'm not listening to his music anymore. That's the least I can do, is not put any more money in his pocket.
Yeah, I mean, and I think you're right. I think that this is an evolving question. I think that eventually cancel culture as we know it will change, and it'll be something else. But I think that's something that we should keep at the forefront of our minds. Like, how does this? What am I doing when I'm listening to, and then what am I putting my energy into, and how does this work? How does it affect others? Does it affect others at all? Am I harming someone? And I think that's the question I like to keep at the forefront of my mind. As what I'm doing harmful?
Right.
And then some people, you expose yourself. If you are in a circle that everyone's canceled in and you didn't, then you just shut the hell up. Like, you don't have to share your opinion. You don't have to be a part of that. You don't have to. It's not like you don't have to advertise like I wake up every morning. Because listen, somebody's gonna wake up every morning, or they like to get down with their homegirl, and in the kitchen is their cut. And it's like me and Bae turn the lights off, and we in the kitchen, and then I say, Alexa, play in the kitchen, and then bam, and they're not gonna stop doing that. A lot of people are about to go. If you never heard of In the Kitchen, then you're gonna be like, oh, and that's that. All right, so let's move on to the next topic. I think that one of the things that Tiff and I talked about, and we're gonna bring this, and I want some thoughts on this as well. In this scenario, what we saw, like and when we talk surviving R. Kelly, we have one predator, right? Or some people like me would consider all the enablers predators as well, and everyone that's around, like we had a whole bunch of predators. But if we're humane about it, and some of us have different convictions, when is it appropriate to consider the pain of the predator?
You mean as in their pain, as in what made them the predator that they are?
Perhaps.
If that's the case, for me personally, that's going to be at the forefront. I mean, there probably are people who are born inherently evil, but hearing his story, he was made the way he was. It's not an excuse for it, but I think that he is an example of when the people who are close to you fail you. And in more than one way. His sister failed him for not protecting him. I still think there was more than just his sister, but I think that he failed his brother by telling his brother that nobody would believe him. And then I think his tribe and community failed him when they saw him and helped. Well, actually, no, they didn't see him. They enabled him by bringing women to him. So I take that all into consideration. I don't think that he's like this insane monster that is not worthy of redemption, because that's not how my God works. And so I consider that, because while I haven't done things like that, I would want to have that type of forgiveness one day with God. Mm-hmm. So that's just where I sit with it.
I hear you. Ms. Tidwell, you look like you're deep in thought.
I have so many thoughts about that. I definitely think that there should be some consideration given to the fact that he had some issues that were exacerbated by his upbringing and his environment. At the same time, again, he wasn't the only predator. I mean, all of the people around him that supported him, that lied for him, that falsified documentation for him, that brought these girls to him. I mean, all of them should be held accountable. And I don't think that having a past that was less than ideal for whatever the reasons, I don't think that there is any excuse. There's never a good excuse for bad behavior. And I think that his behavior was perpetuated by the fact that he wasn't convicted when he went to court. I think that it was perpetuated by the fact that a lot of those parents took payments to silence them and their children for all of the destruction that he caused. I mean, I think that to simplify an answer to your question would be to oversimplify an answer, because it's not that simple. He definitely needs to pay for what he did, everything he's done and continues to do. I do not agree with the fact that because he now has grown women who are of age, that he's holding hostage or has brainwashed or manipulated, that excuses any of the behavior. I still have the same issue with him because obviously there is a cycle of abuse that has taken place in their lives, in his life, and in the lives of the people around him. He needs help. He needs to be punished, but he needs help. So put him in a jail while you help him in the jail.
Absolutely.
And all of the people around him.
No, I think that's well said, and I couldn't ask for more. I think when I don't know the answer to that. I aside from get him out of here and help him there, and away from people, and getting him out of spaces that he can continue to harm young women. I don't really have other answers. And I think that's where a lot of people are. They watch this, maybe they've watched part of this series as well. And a lot of us, I think we may be at a cultural crossroads because people don't really know what they can do. And my question is, where do people that have questions about what they can do, where's the first place that they turn to? Where's the first place after dealing with this and trying to reconcile what you saw and what you heard and what you know within yourself? Where's the first place, or what was the first thing that you turned to, Ms. Tidwell?
When you say what you can do, you mean what you can do about R. Kelly or what you can do about the R. Kellys?
Both. Well, yeah. Mostly, I think what we have to focus on is the R. Kellys. We want justice for these women, but we are all surrounded by R. Kellys. What do we do in those instances?
Well, I mean, I definitely agree with the saying, when you see something, say something. You and Tiffany know me very well. So you know that I will go to the ends of the earth to protect someone. That's just who I am. And if that means placing myself in harm's way, I don't have a fear of doing that. I have a very strong sense of self, and I have a very strong intuition that if I see something going on, I'm going to intervene in some form or fashion. If it's call the police, if it's have a conversation with them, if it's approach the predator myself, I am going to intervene. I don't have a fear of doing that and saying something. I have too many connections on the legal realm to sit back. I will start reaching out. I will talk to a psychotherapist. What can we do? How can I approach this person to get them away from it? I mean, I'm going to continuously put forth effort in making a change in the lives of the people that I see or that I know about who are impacted by these predators, low self-esteem, being manipulated, what have you. It's absolutely unacceptable.
I think that I'm glad that you said what you said, that if you see something, say something. And on night one, we talked about this as well. There's so many parts of our culture. I don't know. I don't even think it's generational that people choose not to snitch. And I don't understand why something like this would be considered snitching, or why people want to reserve it. And when it's not snitching, it's family secrets. And, this happened in family. No one needs to know. We're going to deal with this internally, and we're going to deal with it at home. So how do we get to the point of where maybe it just starts with our immediate circles, and being people that prompt that information and ask that question. Like, maybe we have to be the ones to say, is anything going on? Is everything okay? And allowing our spaces to not just be so clouded with fluff and everything else that we talk about because of everything else that's going on, but kind of giving people room to express themselves, and maybe being conscious enough to notice when people have things going on.
I think that the people around R. Kelly, though, it's very clear that they knew something was going on. But there was something that stuck out in my mind when I was watching the series. And I believe it was his former assistant that said, or someone said that he came up to them and said, man, you got to help me. I can't stop myself. I keep recording myself. I keep, whatever. That was, and, we don't know exactly what was said, but for me, that was an opportunity for that person that he said that to, because I'm sure that wasn't the only person he said something of that nature to. That was an opportunity to say, let's get you some help. We can't, whatever. Or the moment you walk in and are enabling him for something, stop the enablement and help him. Because I do think that, yes, he's done some terrible things, but I do think that we have to consider not to excuse it, as Mrs. Tidwell said, definitely not to excuse it, but to definitely say, you know what, you are sick. You're sick. And not even in a judgmental way, but in a way, you are ill. We need to help you.
Do you think that the average person is going to take that step to people in their circle to say, you're sick, we're going to get you some help, at risk of having them arrested or convicted and sent away? And for some people, I think they walk away and they're like, I would be responsible for this, not considering the fact that they're also responsible for the people that are being impacted by this predatory behavior.
I don't think the average person would, no. And I think that's why nobody in his immediate circle did. They were saying, I'm not going to mess up my paycheck. As long as, if I pretend I'm not seeing anything, then I don't have to say anything. And another person on the docu-series, reality, whatever you want to call it, said, it's not that we didn't know, it's that we chose not to look. And I think that a lot of the people around him made a choice to just not say or do anything, which I hold them responsible as well for these victims, because you had more opportunities than any of us combined to do something about what was going on. But no, I don't think that the average person takes the time or makes the effort or makes the choice to do something about what they're seeing and hearing.
So my question to you is, what do we do about that? Because if the average person isn't doing it and the average people are in our circles, what action should we take? Josh?
So, from one of the question about, how do we deal with the pain of the perpetrator? It's kind of wended its way through this. I'm taking everything that has been said kind of, and not even this last question, and try and not conclude. I work for a college, and most of the places on campus are very clear. We're not here for the perpetrator. We're here to deal with the victim. We're here to deal with the person who was either assaulted, who, ran into whatever it may be, from sexual harassment to actual sexual assault or whatever it may be. And just within the last year, we're kind of starting to have these questions. Well, okay, we know we're doing this. We know we need places like this. But we're finally starting to have conversations around well, how do we address the actual behavior of these men? And, again, I work at a, PWI, so we're talking specifically about white men around here. So I don't want to get deep into that as a particular rabbit hole. But we're just now starting to have the conversations on, how do we actually address some of these behaviors before they start? That's a societal question. That's one that happens in family homes, that happens in individual families. And then it goes back to, the question of if you see something, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to see it through. And part of that is because nobody really knows what seeing it through looks like. Most people in families, they don't have the tools to be like, all right, I know Uncle so-and-so has messed with little so-and-so. I don't want to be the one to say something because I got to deal with personalities. I don't really know the answer on what needs to do. I call the police? Do I have to go on the witness stand? And I get that, people like us, we can see those, we might have the stomach to see those things through. But I'm thinking of people in my own family. They don't have the tools or the wherewithal. And I'm not talking about education. I got educated folk in my family. They just don't have the concept or a world view to even figure out, like, how do I even deal with this? Because this is an unspeakable thing, you know, that has happened. I think until we get better, just as a larger society, again, at our institutions that we still are a part of, that are still somewhat functioning, from our schools to our churches or places of worship, wherever those may be, or again, just those social circles that we function in, until we get better able to talk to people about these things. Because actually, I feel a little bit convicted because one of the comments earlier was like, you know, actually, maybe we shouldn't be canceling these people who kind of low key still fuck with R. Kelly, because you know what? We need to be able to talk to some of these people. We need to at least still have open lines of communication so that, you know, they might not know. They might not know how to deal with it if they see a perpetrator in their family, a perpetrator that, you know, who's a coworker, who's doing this, to be like, either to the victim, like, hey, I'm somebody you can talk to, and or to the perpetrator, yo, chill. This ain't right. There's a group that doesn't support this. And it's like, when we just cancel them, like, we cut off that communication. I don't know. That's not a conclusionary answer, but I think that's a great area we got to deal with.
This is what I hear. I hear you working through it, and I think, and everyone that I'm speaking with, we're all kind of working through this. Like, we get outraged, and we talked about that. We get outraged. We get loud. Sometimes, most of the times for us, we get loud with words. You know, Josh, you can write somebody under a table and then under a bridge and then into a sewer just with your words alone. Kia, you as well. And I think that it's like we are constantly it's probably me too. And I get, like, that's fine. And this is what we feel, and that's what we feel at the moment. And that, I'm not saying that emotion is wrong, but part of unpacking this, and I kind of like that we've done it this way, and we've taken it step by step, day by day, to say, like, okay, this is what happened. This is what we saw. This is how it felt. This is what's happening around us. This is what happened to these girls. This is what we can now identify. And now we're at this place, like, it's time to come up with solutions. And it's like, what I came into this 3 days ago thinking would be a viable solution if I had one, I'm pulling back on that. I'm kind of circling back and saying, am I even dealing with people the right way? You know, like, the people, am I even having, like, am I walking in enough conscience to be able to detect, you know, the right time and place to have these conversations? Because sometimes it's not the right time to have the conversation, and then sometimes it's life and death. Like, it's important that we have it. You see the signs. And Kia, I didn't let you answer. Go ahead.
What I thought about during this conversation is a training session I went to this summer, and it was all around calling people in instead of calling them out, calling them into communities so that they can grow and develop and become better. And I think that's what we're all getting at. Like, there is a time when we need to be calling these people in. I think it's also important that we all always consider the community's safety when we're calling people in. Everyone's not ready to be called in. Everyone doesn't want to be called in. And to be absolutely honest, I don't think R. Kelly is in a place where he's ready to. I think there were opportunities, like people said, like when he asked folks to pray for him, or no, when he asked for help and people chose to pray for him instead of getting him help. We have to be responsible for that. Like, that's that he was asking for real help and you gave him prayers. And I'm Christian. I pray all the time. But
no, we gave him thoughts and prayers. We gave him thoughts and prayers, literally.
And we need to do more than that. I think a lot about Kirk Franklin, who has said, like, I was there when R. Kelly got saved. R. Kelly needed more than salvation. R. Kelly needs a therapist. Like, there has to be action to come behind this. And I hurt for young R. Kelly. I think about a kid who cannot read, who's bullied at school, who's being molested at home, who has no safe place. And I think about how hard that is. But what has happened is, because he didn't get an intervention, it has corrupted his understanding of power and control. And now that he has this money and he's able to hold that power over other women's head, that's what he's doing. So I think it's more than him being mentally broken. I think he is repeating what he's been taught, and that's how he knows to be in the world. Because
I think you said a mouthful, and I think I'm gonna go deeper here because I feel like I used to say this in church all the time. Salvation, it should not be the end of your relationship with this person ever. That salvation is the beginning. That's the beginning step. That especially when in the terms of church. And we're not gonna go there tonight, but that's the beginning step. And that's a whole. A lot of those people don't know how to build a relationship and keep in relationship, and really they can't fulfill the Great Commission because it was build disciples. Discipleship is relationship, not salvation, and altar call.
You worked at a church at one point in your life. You worked at a church at one point in your life.
A couple points in my life. But I think that as difficult as that is, like when that doesn't happen, that I think the responsibility does start to fall on us. And I think that's when we have people in our circles, the R. Kellys, as Mrs. Tidwell said, when we have R. Kellys in our circle, and we see those warning signs, or we see something, or we see somebody that's doing something questionable. Like I think I say this piece just because I know for a fact, I put people on blast, like, sporadic. I mean, in moderation. But even when I remember when I was like 25, and like I had friends that was like, "Oh yeah, I'm talking to this chick. She's still in high school." I'm like, "Bruh, it's time to let that go," because I understood that sometimes that their mental development didn't. You are 25, so 17, bro. Yeah, you are at a line. You're borderline. Like, I don't know what. It depends where you are. Whether or not it's legal. But if you're willing and able at that line, I know that you are susceptible to something younger than 17.
Now, you know what? Can I challenge that ever so slightly?
Sure.
I remember when I first moved to Atlanta, and I remember the story of Janarlo Wilson, who was like 17 and the girl was like 15, and we sent him to jail as a community.
That's not what I'm talking about.
I know that's not what you're talking about, but I'm saying, like, yet again, it's society jacking up shit, messing up our understanding of sexuality, messing up our understanding of things because of the law that gets involved in there. And it's like, that boy went to jail.
He did.
Like, I remember going, because that was like my first introduction to Atlanta, and I'm like, what the hell are they doing down here?
I think I was teaching high school around that time, and I have like lots of thoughts, and like there was a race element there because black guy, white girl, that, and it was in like Douglas County, I believe, or somewhere where black people weren't really welcome. So there's definitely a race element to that. Honestly, I think high school should be 10th through 12th grade, and 9th graders should stay in middle school because of the age difference between a 14-year-old and an 18-year-old and developmental. But I also think in those cases, like, once you're in your teens, I like 2-year age gaps. Like, if you're 17 and you're dating a 19-year-old, or 18 and you're dating a 20-year-old, I think you're still within your developmental range. And some states have started passing laws to kind of help that out so that they aren't misused in situations like what happened with Janarlo.
Yeah, I mean, I think my point, and I appreciate that challenge. I think 25,
sure, right,
and 18. You know what I'm saying? You're yes, okay. You're legal. She's legal. But see, that is a legality has to be there. We know that legality and morality is not the same thing,
right?
And so I think that if you're not willing to say, I'm not saying stop, but you should be aware that what you're doing could be dangerous, because if you're 25 and you're talking to a 17-year-old and she has 15-year-old friends and 16-year-old friends, And maybe she turns 18 and one of those friends is still 15 and then she turns 16. Like there's no reason why you don't say something. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying like, well, we can unpack it and go through the what ifs, and I don't want to do that. But I just think that that's the type of time, though. That's when I think like your tribe, your circle, we have to be responsible for each other and speak up in those situations. Tiff, I know you had another question for us to jump to.
I did. So I know, and I think we mentioned it very briefly before. Do we believe, or how do we think that predators are built? Are they made? Are they built? Are they nurtured? Are they nature versus nurture? Or is it a little bit of both? Is it parenting? Is it environment? Is it industry? Is it like, what do we think brings about that behavior in certain people? Is it different things for different predators, or what do we think about that?
Do you think, I think that's a great question. I don't know the answer to that question. I watch a lot of, what are we on, season 21, 22 of Law and Order? I mean, I watch a lot of Law and Order and SVU. And so based on that, I don't know. Like, are predators, like, are they born this way? Are they created? And maybe it's a combination of both. I believe in the natural and the spiritual, and I believe in genetics, and I believe in genetics, and I don't know. What do you think?
Okay.
I can't. I don't know.
Okay.
I can't even lie like I got an answer.
Okay. I think that as the situation is with many behaviors, I think it can be a combination. I think that it was probably a little bit of a generational thing for R. Kelly and his family, but I also think it was, and maybe that is environment. But I also believe in science, and I believe that sometimes there are synapses up here in the brain that don't necessarily all fire together, and that's the nerd in me. That's the chemistry person in me that believes that mental illness really
bless you.
That believes that.
Thank you. I hit the mute button way too slow.
Okay.
Get some hand sanitizer though.
Right. I think that there are definitely chemical and physiological reasons for some behaviors and illnesses. However, I do think that as far as R. Kelly, at least, this was definitely a lot stemming from his environment and his upbringing, and the child molestation and abuse that he went through, and that the things that he saw at such an early age that even his teacher commented about what he was writing and doing and talking about in school. So I think it can be a combination of both, and depending on the person or the predator or the behavior, it can lean either way with how much each one contributes to that person. Both Wes and Mrs. Tidwell look deep in thought.
Yeah. Wes, what are your thoughts there?
No, I'm just thinking about sociopathic behavior. I think R. Kelly is a sociopath. And I don't know whether that was triggered at the time he was molested, but the lack of empathy for the girls he's victimizing. The fact that he was out at a club last night and women were yelling out, "Take me hostage." He's doing shows. He just has a sensitivity chip.
Women were yelling what? See, I don't get
Take me hostage, R. Kelly.
I don't get that, and maybe I do. I don't. Man,
it's all such a cycle of. We're at a real, in the world, spiritual impasse, and I think, even though he's sociopathic, I think it's a reflection. The fact that we got to convince people that he needs to go to jail, and you got people still talking about, these girls are fast, and can't really see that these are children. That's all a problem, but for him, I think he's sociopathic. It could have been triggered at the point he was abused himself, but somewhere along the line, typically there's something that comes along that shows you, okay, this isn't the right behavior. I need to change that. This dude is almost 50. If he's not
Right.
50 already, and
52.
just
52.
that he continues on this path, and that you hear these ladies on this series talking about this pain and what it's caused them, and he's still saying he can't identify with that. That's sociopathic behavior. That's not something you can look at and say, and I know Kia was saying some people can't be called in. I think that's true for him. He's not somebody that needs to be called in at this point. We have to protect our girls and protect our community. Send him to prison and send some great prison ministry there to go minister to him. Don't leave him there. But there is, at some point, you have to say that's a demonstration of behavior that we have to protect community from. And I think that's critical with someone like that you don't look at it and say, hey, brother, I'm still looking at you. Come on over here. Let's pray. Let me pray for you while you in jail. Because while you out, you are violating girls. I mean, he is straight up a lack of regard. And because he's violating girls that the world doesn't care about anyway.
Right. Come on with this.
Got a different set of rules for him. But if he was violating Becky and Judy and Lori, then something different would be happening. But
no, you're right. You're right.
Little black girl from Chicago.
Well, I have a follow-up question to that. Very quick answer, hopefully. You mentioned prison ministry. Do you think he would make it in prison? Because word on the street is prison people, you could have murdered your mother, but you come in there and you touched a child, you ain't gonna make it.
And prisons need to be reformed. I don't think anybody should be raped anywhere, no matter what they did. So possibly because of how prisons are set up, yeah, there is a possibility. There's nothing worse in prison than someone who's molested children. I mean, you could have a mass murderer. If they murder grown people, they'll leave them alone. But if they molested children, and that lets you know, even people in prison are more ready to protect our children than we are on the outside.
That's real.
You got people out here talking about, those girls knew what they were into. People in prison saying, no, come in here. Because they understand children should be protected.
They should be. Absolutely. Wes, Ms. Tidwell, I want you to answer that question as well. Wes, I just wanted to know, who has the best prison ministry, Joel Osteen's Lakewood Church or Jamal Bryant's Newburgh?
All right. My God.
Well, both of them have probably almost been on their way to prison. So I would say...
Can we go to commercial?
I don't
know. Right.
Sorry. There's just sometimes, I can't resist. Damn.
So messy.
It's just who I am. That's who I am.
I raised you better than that.
Mrs. Tidwell, your response?
Yeah.
Yep. First of all, I got to get past y'all both calling me Mrs. Tidwell. That is so funny. But you're right. If you call me by my first name, I'm going to hurt both of you.
When you came up, I said, you got to be Tiffany's mama.
I am. I am. I'll claim her tonight.
Tonight.
So he not only is he sociopathic, but he has an anti-personality disorder. Because you'd have to have that in order to be beguiling enough to get people to want to be in your inner circle. Because there are a lot of people who are famous that are out there that cannot get people to rally around them the way he has and be as supportive just because of his power. So he is able to draw you in and make you feel as though you are the most important person on the planet until he gets you under his manipulation and is able to begin the abuse. So he has an anti-personality disorder along with a sociopathic disorder. But the answer to the other part of the question, or the first part of the question, is because I do have some experience in nature versus nurture, it's a combination of both. You can be born with sociopathic tendencies and ways and predispositions through your genetics, But in the right environment, you will seek and get the help that you need so that you don't act upon that behavior. He had the predisposition by looking at his family members. Okay, they all crazy. All of them. Every last one of them. They crazy. So he had the predisposition through his genetics anyway. And then to be in an environment where no one sought proper help only fueled the issues that he already had. So, but at this point, again, because of several diagnoses that I could probably label him with without ever doing a full-scale examination, I would say that he is beyond repair in his current state. He needs to be locked up somewhere, be it a mental hospital, be it and not able to get out, be it a jail cell, be it wherever it is that he is not of harm to others and or himself, because I think that that's the next step. I think that if he has a total demise, that the next thing he's going to do is turn that inwardly and harm himself.
I literally just said that to somebody today.
Absolutely. Kristin, your thoughts?
Man, y'all said a lot. I think that we do people in general a disservice when they come to us with their pain and we only send them away with our prayers, right? We have to send them with our prayers and the therapist recommendation and the doctor recommendation and some tools they can use to partner with their prayers to move forward in life, right? And this is the thing. All of us are kind of functioning from a place of privilege here. And what I have learned with privilege is that you have to leverage your privilege for the least privileged person in the room. So if I'm in a room with the predator and the prey, I've got to leverage my privilege for the prey. I can't protect this adult and leave this child in harm's way. I can't, because the child, regardless of what the adult has been through, that child is the most defenseless and the least privileged person in the room. And
to that point, and I think that's such a good point. We talked about that yesterday and a little bit on the first day, that we know that there are some, and I said it, there are some terrible kids out here. There are some terrible kids. They're just horrible, cunning, conniving, trifling, dirty, nasty, smelly. They're really, really bad.
Okay.
But the decisions that they make is not their problem. It's ours, because they're still children.
Correct.
And so I think that's the best point that I think we have to keep that at the forefront. And we now know that our language should not be labels on 12 and 13 and 14-year-old Black girls. Stop calling them fast. Just cut it out. Cut it out. Stop perpetuating and pushing that venom into them, and then being surprised at their reactions when they embrace something else or something that doesn't look like, because I doubt R. Kelly's language sounded like, "Oh, you fast, come to daddy."
Right.
It probably didn't sound anything like that.
Right. It was affirming. It was welcoming.
Absolutely.
It was caring. It sounded like it was caring.
It sounded like the right language.
And if you're not getting it anywhere else, if everybody else is telling you fast, you gonna be just like your daddy, you gonna be just like your mama, you gonna be this, that, whatever. I don't need all that. Nobody needs that. You're gonna go to the place where you feel the most welcome, and if nothing else, a predator knows how to welcome you in.
If nothing else, a predator. Now that's 2 nights in a row. Last night we had Kia, and you cannot out parent a predator. You can't. I've been saying that to people all day long. You cannot out parent a predator. And we saw that in the documentary, and there are so many people that said when they watched this, every time I heard it, I just wanted to turn around and just well, that would have never been me. That would have never been you, because you too think that you can out parent a predator. And you can't do that. It's just not real.
You honestly want to know what he probably does the best, better than anybody else in these people's lives? He probably listens. We don't listen to children. We say children should be seen and not heard. We talk, you don't know what you're talking about. Sit down, be quiet. We don't indulge the conversation with children. At
It's
all.
interesting that you say that, because if you on night one, if you remember when I said sometimes we're looking at, and so many of these girls, part of the mind warp that they're going through, I said that, and I believe that when I watched the documentary. I said the first thing that I can't believe, these kids are missing, these parents want them home, these mothers are upset, but some of these kids did not have peachy keen home lives. They weren't excited to be there because they weren't getting that affirming language. They may not have felt that love. And while the parent is expressing the love in the docu-reality series, I got to keep it straight. The parent is expressing that love. We know that people have traumatic home lives. And so it's very possible that they could have been running away from that and running to something that seemed comforting.
Yes, I did some work with human trafficking in particular with children, and they say, like, when people are running away from something and at a place of desperation, those are your easiest targets. It don't even take a lot of nice language. You could buy them Waffle House. You could buy them Waffle House real quick and let them tell you their side of the story and say, you know what, I get that. I understand. And that's a wrap. And that's all they wanted to hear.
Listen, that Waffle House sounded really good, but I'm just getting over a stomach virus, so there's that. But no, seriously. So another thing that we sort of haven't addressed to sort of make this better too, and we've addressed men, but I think it's also very important that for this to be something that's taken seriously, for this movement to be more than just a moment and not next week, we also have to hold some of the women accountable. And when I say women, I'm specifically talking about people like Sparkle and Andrea Kelly. When you have women like that whose story changed with the shifting of the wind and their paycheck.
I know you've wanted to go here for the last couple of days, so
I only
unpack. Just unpack what you mean.
I only say that it's because it's bothersome to any movement when there's a real problem and the people at the forefront and the loudest don't have the real meaning of the movement at the heart of it. It's just, for instance, a good friend of mine who lives in my complex with me, she was on national news, Brandy Billy, her daughter went missing, and unfortunately she did not return to us alive. And the NAACP did jump in, but there were people who tried to jump in, for instance, and I say names like Al Sharpton, goodbye. And there were a bunch of other names that were there for the moment and the clout and not here for the progress that needed to be made. And so it bothers me too when we have women in a time where we're having Me Too, or people who are like, now's the time that I feel like where they have today, Me Too, he was a Q. When you have people who are at the forefront saying, hey, this happened, or this, and that, and then go around saying, oh, I can step in the name of love. I can talk trash about my ex, but y'all can't because y'all don't know him. F you, this, and that. Or actually, it wasn't this that happened, and sorry, this is what happened. Or Sparkle going saying, oh, this was the timeline back 10 years ago, but now here's my story. By the way, I just dropped a single after the docuseries.
Yeah. So, as we start to wrap this up, question, and I want to kind of run through the panel and ask this question. Do you think that
say it?
I know the Alex way to say it, and and then there's a right way to say it.
Oh, bless.
Do you think that
wow.
I don't know if I've ever seen you speechless, bruh.
I don't know that I'm speechless, but it's something that I'm very passionate about. Integrity. Do you think that when there's a lack of integrity in the camp, that the entire camp begins to look
shady,
less than credible?
Yes.
Absolutely. When there's a lack of integrity in the camp, and
That's an easy one.
It's a okay, yeah. That's and so I think that, Gerald, to your point, you don't even really have to do digging to question the credibility of Drea Kelly, or and this is not discrediting, but this is just truth. Like, you're yeah. So
literally,
and the same with Sparkle. And so I think that when we tackle this in our own circles, I think that not only because people are not just listening, like they're reading your posts. They're reading your posts, and they're reading your tweets, and they're reading your Instagram, and then they're watching you, and they're following your actions and how you treat your significant other, women, young girls. If you're not doing it, you're not going to be able to. If you don't have the integrity, if you're not showing the integrity in your circles, this isn't something that you're going to be able to speak to. You can't be a part of the movement that's addressing predatory behavior and bigotry when you exhibit those traits and you're not integral yourself. So I think that as we go reaching in our circles, and I go back to checking your homies and checking people when you see things that are out of pocket and out of line. Integrity is that's and your name, like that's really what we got. And if we want to make moves, and if we want something to come of this series and this movement as we mute R. Kelly and we move forward, we have to really, really be intentional in our actions. And I'm so grateful for all of you participating. And I think that conclusively we've got a lot of work to do. So everyone that's here, I definitely want to give you some time to say your final thoughts, and Tiff and I will wrap this up. But more than anything, share this, man. Share these conversations and this content, because none of this was done for our health. Because I'm tired.
Listen, go to bed as soon as this is done.
But it's valuable and viable, and we have to have these conversations with all age groups and all levels of everybody has to be a part of the conversation. If we want to see it change and we want to see it shift, staying committed. And I think it's not just one thing. It's not just canceling his music, and it's not just attending rallies and retweeting posts that made you feel good. It's more than that. It's changing the way that we act. Gerald, your last word.
Everybody, embrace love and embrace integrity, because if you don't, you might be doing more harm than the person that you're out here calling a predator.
Gerald, how do people keep up with you?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at MusicMan128. And I think you guys who are on Facebook watching right now, Gerald A. Hargrow, just hit me up.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Kristin, your final word.
Just to what Kia said early, when it's safe for the community, we need to make sure that we are calling people in, because there is no accountability outside of community. I can't tell you what to do if I don't have influence in your life, because you're not a part of this circle. But if I can call you into this circle and assist you and help you and guide you, and I've earned the right to be heard by you, then when I check you, one, it came from a place of love, and two, it actually has value. So don't be so quick to trash people, to throw people away, to cancel people, because in doing all of that, you're going to get the opposite result, because there is no accountability outside of community.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. This breaking news is just bothering me. Kia, your final word.
I think it's important for us to remember that what we're talking about is like culture change work. It's shifting the culture, and that doesn't happen overnight. That can take like a generation. So I think it's important we keep that in mind, and we keep having these conversations and keep pushing our people and our institutions to change. So our kids and grandkids aren't having these same, they're in a different and better place than where we are today.
That is amazing. Kia, how do people keep up with you?
I am Kia Speaks all over the internets.
Yes, you are. And keep on speaking. because you cannot out-parent a predator. Okay. This is what we know, Kia. And you know what? And if you guys listen, I don't care what platform you follow Kia on. I don't care how old you are. I don't care when you're watching this. Go follow Kia at Kia Speaks. If you think you know something, she will let you know. If you don't,
quickly,
okay, all right. That's who she is. And like even after we got off the air yesterday, I was telling Tiff, I'm like, look. I met Kia probably at the beginning of my Twitter experience. It had to be like January, like 2009, 2008, something like that.
January.
Like it goes way back.
Yes.
And I came on, and Kia and I have hung out. Like literally, she's the coolest. Just follow her, and it is. And Kia, of course, as we have this conversation more. Of course you'll be back. So thank you for everything and all that.
So we've been on Twitter for 10 years. Is that what we're actually discovering? Is it
I
don't know.
So you didn't need to do the math.
I just really think what you had tried to did was you tried to cause a scene. That's what you did.
Decade. I started mine January 2009 too.
Wow.
Okay. It's been 10 years.
We don't need Joshua's final words. He's done.
We old.
What you just did, you just aged this. Everything that you see right now has been aged.
Good day, sir.
Jesus. Thank you, Joshua. Thank you.
Yeah, my final words. I still get to say my final words.
Yeah, say them and then shut up.
No, my final words on this, again, some of the work that I've kind of found myself into is not so work I set out to do, but to actually continue these conversations I'm having with young Black men, high schoolers from my church, and certainly, again, for the age population in college, these 18 to 22-year-olds who are learning and figuring out their own sexuality and trying to find some, give them, actually be conversation and dialogue partners with them about how to actually have healthy sexual experiences and sexual interactions with the men and women that they, choose to engage with, and to kind of break some of the stuff that's already just in their minds. Because I don't want to look up and say that I contribute, because I was silent, I might have contributed to somebody being a predator.
Yes. I appreciate those last words. We got one more, and panel, if you want to stick around just for a second, we've got one last question Tiff and I are going to tackle with some others. I do want to read this snippet of breaking news that just came across my feed right now. For those of you watching and those of you that watch the documentary and that you used to follow MTV News and MTV and all of that, SurvivingRKelly interviewee Touré has also been accused of sexual harassment by a makeup artist. Essence Magazine is reporting right now. That news breaking now. This is like a never-ending cycle. Tiff, that final question.
I didn't get that push alert, so I can't even. Okay, final question. What's next? How do we continue this dialogue so that this issue and situation is not forgotten? Clearly we get a push alert every day, every other day about somebody else being accused of sexual harassment, sexual abuse. And I'm hoping that this conversation does not end with this docuseries. I'm hoping that the investigations don't slowly fade away as the pressure begins to go elsewhere, or the media decides to cover whatever asshat president is doing that current day. How do we continue this conversation? What's next? What can we do to continue the conversation? I think Kia answered part of it. It takes years, a generation to make change. How do we ensure that change is going to actually happen this time and that the conversation continues?
Yeah, I'm going to pull West in. I'm going to let your mom finish her red velvet cake.
Dang, you petty. You just call her straight out.
West, how do we continue this?
You know, one of the things that we can't be delusional about is we take action on what we care about. And I just can't believe that one of the reasons why we're not more action oriented.
Can you say that one more time?
Jesus. We take action on what we care about. And we don't
care. So what
about
you're saying
girls.
is, that's what you're saying.
What I'm saying is, until we culturally realize that we have, as a Black race right now, and have since slavery ended, a kind of post-traumatic stress disorder, and that we have believed the lies that have been told to us about our culture, about our men, our women, our boys, and our girls. And that is impacting how we relate to Black girls. So when people look at Black girls, and it's not white people looking at them, it's not only white people, it's when Black people, a lot of them look at Black girls, they see Black women. And our girls are sexualized, they're seen and grown when they're only 12 and 13.
Wes, I feel like I'm 12, but I just got to ask this question, right? I got to ask this question. They see Black women, and Tiff and I were talking about this yesterday, and I said, ain't that about a bitch? Excuse my French. All right, they see Black girls, and they're like, oh, this is a grown-ass woman. They see Black men, and the police see, 9-year-old, 10-year-old, 12-year-old, and we need to shoot him because this is a Black man. Male. But white people are constantly saying that we don't age, and then we know that they. So how is it? How is it that they see how?
I'm gonna tell you. Somebody was asking me earlier this evening. They were sending me scripture after scripture, asking how was it possible that somebody viewed it that way, and I told them people read the Bible through whatever ideology they accept. People view society through whatever ideology they accept. And so what's happened with us is we sometimes accept this kind of ideology that says Black people are animals. Black people have more physical power than white people. Black girls are more sexualized than white girls. All of those things that we would look at and we say, okay, white people believe that. We don't believe that. But in order to keep us where we were, they had to make us believe it.
Absolutely.
And still today, we have to kind of escape from that. I'm not blaming the man for anything. The man, I'm saying we have some things we have to address that on our watch, these girls have been violated. And we're still struggling with, a lot of people, when I look on Twitter, are still struggling with, did R. Kelly do it? I'm like, how many Black girls got to tell you? And what kind of investigation has to come out? And why is it so hard to believe that little Black girls have been violated? It's really alarming. But I think we don't address it because, by and large, it's not something that we care about. Now, we care when little Jasmine Barnes was shot. We thought it was a white man that had shot her. And there was an uproar. But little Black girls violated by a Black male superstar, that's hard for us to conceptualize because we made a hero out of this man. And he's not even making like lift every voice and sing and we are the world. He's making Ignition. So, your body's calling. So all these different, it's not like he was some Mandela.
West, yeah. Sometimes your body do be calling.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, then you should listen to the man's song Mason Jar.
You didn't just do that. You did not just do that because you're trying to trigger me. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to trigger me. You are trying to trigger me to talk about the man's Cora and Brown's Love album, and I'm not doing that on tonight.
I mean, I'm just saying that is perfect timing as an alternative if you don't want to listen to R. Kelly anymore. You can listen to, what was the name of that album?
You're doing it with the straight
Mason jar. I gotta go look it up.
And that's not the name of the album. That's just the name of a song.
You know what, Wes? If you really want in, there's a whole Twitter hashtag that Tiffanie, this messy Tiffanie right here, and Gerald, who was just on, they started it called Gospel Love Tracks. And they tweeted, and at the least, it'll bless you. Mrs. Tidwell, how do we, what's next? What do we do next?
We stop calling people out for eating red velvet cake.
Dang.
Uh-oh.
Dang.
That's a good start.
Jesus.
It looked good. I mean, the way that you were going in on that fork.
I mean, you were jealous. You were jealous.
Wow.
It's my birthday cake, and I'll have it if I want to at 11:30.
A very appropriate happy birthday, because it is that.
It is that. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
You have to tell us all how. And this is what I'm saying. Black don't crack. At 73, you look amazing.
Dang, she gonna kill you. Jesus.
Alex, you gonna get in trouble.
I had to remember that there is an actual camera facing me right now, because I was going to show you how my middle fingernail is a little bit different from the rest of my fingernails.
Tiffany mom out there flipping a bird.
Woo!
My mama ain't always been saved, and the Lord is still working on her.
Do it.
Only a flight away. Remember that.
It's true.
2 hours.
It's true. How would you, in all seriousness, how do we move past this? How do we shift this? What conversations do we continue to have?
I think that the first thing that we have to do is start with ourselves. I think that while we're pointing the finger at the insecurities of the young ladies, at the insecurities and issues of R. Kelly and the people around him, we need to also take a look at ourselves, because, but for the grace of God, there go all of us, if we just want to be real about it. So
That's right.
we have to start with ourselves. There's a lot of insecurities and things that we would fall prey to that we don't like to admit to. There was a time in my life, and I'm just a little bit older than y'all. You see the look I'm giving you?
Yes.
But there was a time in my life that...
Little bit, same thing.
There was a time in my life that, I grew up in a time where we were fascinated by superstars and singers, and because they were so untouchable, you couldn't just reach out to them like you can nowadays. Like, I mean, you go to the airport and see stars in the airport nowadays, or in the mall, or what have you. When I was growing up, that's not the way it was. So there was a time in my life that I could have fallen prey to an R. Kelly and, been in a similar situation. Through lots of work, through lots of growth, through lots of therapy, I've worked a lot on myself, which is why I'm able to stand strong and be where I am today, to know that I would confront something like that head on. But a lot of people are making comments about what you would do and why that wouldn't happen to you. And I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I don't think that we know ourselves as well as we think we do. So we have to start with ourselves. We have to raise our own awareness. We have to increase our own self-security. We have to begin to work on our own foundation and build from that, so that we can begin to impact others. And I agree with Wes. Those things that we care about, we will put forth effort to work on. So once you begin to solidify your own self-security, you can then hear clearly the call that's placed on your life to go out into the masses and fulfill what God has called you individually to do. And not a moment before then. So the conversation has to continue, not just about R. Kelly in this situation, but there's an R. Kelly living on every block. And we've got to begin to recognize that.
I have a follow-up question, somewhat related to something you said. What do you think, as a mother, as my mother, what do you think was something that you did differently whether it was as a result of your own upbringing or just your own healing process. What is something that you did differently that you think saved me from becoming a potential victim?
I paid attention.
Boy, did you ever.
I was active. There was no Tiffanie without there being Mrs. Mackey not far behind. I didn't go places that were inappropriate for you to go, and I didn't allow you to go places where I couldn't just pop in. That was not acceptable. Everybody in every school that you ever went to knew who I was. I was present.
Accurate.
Ain't that the damn truth?
Shut up, Alex.
Ain't...
I mean, people would see me. They see my car pull into the parking lot, and they're like, "Oh, Tiffany's mom is here."
And you know what? Thank you so much for coming and stamping what I said yesterday. Because I was telling the panel yesterday that my dad is literally the most overprotective man, probably because he's so enamored and probably obsessed with his kids that he just never goes away. And then when I turned like 15, I met you, and I was like, "Oh, there's two of them. Like two of these type of people exist in the world." And I just didn't understand what two grown people that seemingly should have jobs, what they were doing in first, second, and third block. Like, why are you?
And then there's that.
Why are you here?
I still don't know how you kept a job.
Because my first job was a parent. That was my primary job. To hell with the paycheck. I can always get a paycheck. My first job, but I can't replace Tiffanie. I can have more children, but I can't have another Tiffanie. There was only one.
That's good.
Not the polls, Tiffanie.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. So my first job was as a parent. There's no way on this planet or any other that an R. Kelly or anybody close to anything could have come to me and said, "I'm going to have your daughter come to my hotel room so she can audition for me." What?
Right. The first barrier was like, how are you even getting her out of the house?
The first barrier is, how are you even communicating with her and I don't know about it? That's never going to happen.
Well,
because I had to tap on everything. You know, when
it's true. You know what? And I think this is valuable. And I think maybe parents that are watching, because, you know, our grandmas are now like 37. Like most of the grandmas now are younger than you. And I mean, and you listen. I mean, I would tell on Tiffanie, because the few things that she could get away with, only I knew.
You mean the few things that I think I got away with?
Oh, there's a few. You know,
there's a couple.
I drop one every 10 years because I just
every
feel like,
10 years.
I still don't want you to get that ass tapped. But
listen, Mom just found out I had a moment of probation, and she went.
But you were grown and out of my house by then.
I was.
That's the difference. You were grown and out of my house by then, and you had enough sense to know how to maneuver and handle it. Well, not that, but I'm saying to maneuver and handle it so that you didn't end up in jail. Because had I got a call from you in jail, I'd have been right there in the cell next to where you used to be before they took you to the hospital.
Well, you know what? I think this is valuable, and like I said, I think that as we conclusively, I think being present is key. Parents have to be present. Parents have a responsibility. The resounding thing that I said throughout the entire series was everyone, like parents have a responsibility, people have a responsibility, we have a responsibility, and that's just the way. If we're gonna change it, we unpacked it. We took 3 days. We did that. If we're gonna change it, if anything's gonna change, we all have to take some sort of responsibility. West, your final word. How can people keep up with you? Tell us about some projects that you got going on.
I think what you just said is absolutely true. I mean, I'm thinking, even when a child is not with their parents, there should be adults around who ensure that children are safe. And I believe we have to have a sense of community that says these are all our children, regardless of race, regardless of where they come from, all of those things. These are our children, and I don't want anything to happen to them under our watch. And we have to cultivate that sense of community. And I just believe that's lacking sometimes. It's lacking certainly when you watch that documentary and you hear the people who knew these things were happening. Then we also have to ask what things are happening. I might not be in the room, but I'm definitely aware that there are some things happening to children all over the world, and I'm not taking action to stop them. So am I as complicit as those people just because they were sitting in that space? But I'm aware of things that are happening to children being tear gassed, children being caged, children being very much mistreated in this country and beyond. And if I'm apathetic about that, is that any different than the people who were sitting in that space and who knew those videos were being made? So I just think there has to be just an overall increase in care for humanity first. And then I think, our country and our world needs a spiritual overhaul. Total revolution of values, as Dr. King called it, where children are more important than music, and certainly more important than money. And but those are things, he also said that we need heart change and legislative change. I think some laws need to change around what happens with people who demonstrate this type of behavior with children. The laws have to change, our hearts have to change, and I think those are the two main things. And counseling people won't fix either of those things. To go back to that, so we have to think about what's going to bring justice in these situations, keeping in mind too, justice isn't always revenge. Justice is much higher than just getting back at somebody. True justice would be a world where our children aren't molested, period, and our girls aren't raped. So how do we get that, where there's a different set of ethics and values, where our children aren't in danger? I don't know. I don't know if we get there, but I think we can work towards that. Nice. And I'm Vonneta L West everywhere. Vonnetta L West on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Thank you so much, West. And
Thank you for having me.
That's Dr. Vonneta L West. She's amazing as well. So make sure you follow her. Insight, wisdom, and comedy. Okay. Mrs. Tidwell, your final word.
Yeah, I think that we have to be more present. We have to be more present as parents, as people, as a community. We have to be more present. And I think that if we would put down the cell phones, constantly looking for headlines or things to record to continue the gossiping, instead of talking about it, we need to be more active. So, and be more present. That's my goal for 2019 is to be more present, and I would definitely implore everybody to do the same. And see something, say something, do something.
Amen.
Very, 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 very nice. Thank you so much for the final word, and thank you so much for participating with us tonight. Tiff, man, jeez, what a lot to unpack.
Right.
The last few days, it's just been strange. But I think that this is the beginning. I think let's just continue to keep this conversation going. Let's keep the dialogue going, and we'll continue to follow it. This series, honestly, if I'm being honest, I said this to a buddy of mine. This was not the first series or show that I wanted to do for the year.
Right.
It's just really heavy. It's a lot to unpack. It's a lot to deal with. But I felt like it was necessary. I think that I myself have gotten a lot out of it.
And I think that this is a resource. It's a tool. The conversation. This is a conversation starter. And again, I've said it multiple times. This is a conversation starter for the brunch table. This is a conversation starter for Saturday night game night. Like you can have these conversations. What are we doing in the community? What do we know about the community? These are conversations for the Sunday dinner table.
Right.
Like this is just what needs to happen. I'm glad that we were able to do this. If you've missed episode 1, episode 2, this episode as well, all of it will be. I don't foresee us having a need to take it down anytime soon. Visit BossFM.com. There's an Unpacking RKelly series link, or you can just go to BossFM.com/unpackingRKelly. You can watch all 3 episodes. If you feel like you missed something or you want it to be a part of the conversation and you want to reach out to us anytime, feel free to do that as well. I'm going to commit to making sure we continue to have conversations like this. Maybe this is the right forum. Maybe we revisit it and we do something different. But consistent conversations. And one thing I'll just say about what we've done with this network since its inception, and I've worked at the others, why aren't they having this conversation?
Right.
Why aren't we having this conversation on the Black media that we own?
Right.
Why aren't we, I say it all the time, they'll probably never hire me to come and do a full overhaul like I want them to. If we're going to play Baby Boy all day long and You Got Served all day long in Medea's Family Reunion and not have these conversations, cancel the network, shut it down, close it down, because it's not helping anything. So,
and unfortunately, they keep taking us off air on those channels and others.
How do they keep up with you, Tiff? Oh, your final word.
Again, like you said, this is a conversation starter, which means it shouldn't end here. So continuing the conversation, but one thing that I think I've stressed every night of this series and that I will continue to stress on this series and outside of it is practice self-care and self-healing. You cannot help somebody else unless you are first helping yourself. So practice self-care and self-healing, but then also practice community healing. And keep the conversation going. Don't let it just stop with this docu-reality series, whatever we're calling it. And don't let it just stop with R. Kelly. This is a bigger issue. This is a community issue. And as my mom said, Mrs. Tidwell said, there are R. Kellys on a lot of corners out there. So let this just be a starter. And continue the conversation, continue the dialogue so that we can hopefully see some actual real change. And then you asked me how you can get in touch with me. I'm Tiff Lanelle everywhere, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and .com.
Amazing. Thank you, Tiff. And listen, my final word, keep having the conversation. Don't stop and don't continue to be present. Don't stop having the conversation. Don't let this issue go. However you chose to deal or process all of this, don't keep it inside. Share it with other people. Stay present. That's what's sticking with me. That's what I'll say, and that's just the literal final word. Stay present. Be present in the lives of your family members, and protect Black girls. That is one of the most important things that we need to say that we haven't said. Protect Black girls. We are out of here. And again, check this out, BossFM.com, and we'll see you next time.